one last thing I ask of you tonight. I ask you to remember. Remember that we cannot have peace without justice. Remember that we must continue to disrupt the rules that prevent us from achieving real democracy. Remember that organizing, mobilizing, protesting, and voting is all part of a rising Black power that is driving change in our country. Remember, in the words of Lani Guinier, that democracy is not something we inherit or inhabit, it is something we must create together. And as you remember those things, if you want to draw a little inspiration and have more than a little bit of Black joy, I want you to think about one of the greatest Americans to ever live, Paul Robeson. Robeson was an extraordinary and highly accomplished athlete, artist, intellectual, and activist. He spoke multiple languages, traveled the world, developed deep global ties as both a humanitarian and an uncompromising warrior for justice. And during the 1950s Red Scare, news media and Hollywood studios joined the anti-democratic forces within the U.S. government to critique and blacklist Robeson, as well as hundreds of others. They mischaracterized Robeson's words and his work, labeled him a communist, blacklisted him from performing, revoked his passport, and finally dragged him before the Senate House Un-American Activities Committee in 1956. But if you want to feel 10 feet taller, if you want to hear what it sounds like to refute, refuse, and mock white supremacy to its face, if you want to understand why our First Amendment rights to think and speak and protest are the very foundation of our democracy, you got to listen to Robeson respond as he is harassed by openly racist senators. He declares, I am being tried, not for being a communist. I'm being tried for fighting for the rights of my people who are still second-class citizens in this United States. He looks at one senator and says, my mother was born in your state, Mr. Walter, and my mother was a Quaker, and my ancestors in the time of Washington baked bread for George Washington's troops when they crossed the Delaware, and my own father was a slave. And I stand here struggling for the rights of my people to be full citizens in this country, and they are not. They are not in Mississippi, and they are not in Montgomery, Alabama, and they are not in Washington. They are nowhere. And that is why I'm here today, because you, Mr. Senator, want to shut up every Negro who has the courage to stand up and fight for the rights of his people. If you want some inspiration, go to @ColorOfChange on Facebook, Twitter, IG, and listen to Paul Robeson as he slays the racist fools of the Senate. I promise you that the voice and courage of Robeson will steel your spine and lift your head and ready your feet for the race ahead. Get inspired and listen to his entire testimony. I am Melissa Harris Perry, and this has been the Black Review, and I promise I will see you right here tomorrow night at the top of the hour, 7 o'clock. And until tomorrow, hold your heads up and stand together.